With week 1 of the regular season in the books, it is time to move on and take a glimpse into week 2. There were a ton of things, both good and bad, from week 1, and there are teams with legitimate Super Bowl aspirations currently sitting at 0-1. Some of those teams disappointed big time last week, while others lost in a close game that came down to the wire. And in today's video, we are going to be discussing a couple of NFL teams that it's going to be make or break for as we enter week 2 of the NFL season. We recently did a video on the most disappointing teams in week 1, and to be clear, none of those teams from that video will be in today's, as not much has changed in the last 48 hours, and not surprisingly, with how loaded the AFC is, we are going to be discussing a couple of AFC teams in today's video, as the juggernauts in that conference will wait for absolutely nobody. And without further ado, let's begin. And we are starting today's video with the Denver Broncos, who dropped a stunner in week 1 to the Seattle Seahawks. This was, of course, Russell Wilson's return to the Pacific Northwest, and you can very easily make the case they should have won this game. There was a lot of frustration with how first-year head coach Nathaniel Hackett handled the end of this game with clock management, and how they traded 2 first-round picks and then some for Russell Wilson, gave him a very hefty contract, and then took the ball out of his hands. They turned the ball over twice in the red zone, and we talked a lot about this in team previews, but for teams like the Broncos and the Titans, for example, who also lost their week 1 game to the Giants, these were must-win games for them, because with how loaded the AFC is, other teams aren't going to wait around them for them to figure it out, and week 1 was a lost opportunity for the Denver Broncos. This is not a question of whether or not Russell Wilson has it, or if he can play in Denver, because I thought Russell played a good game, all things considered, but the defense was getting carved up time and time again in the first half by Geno Smith. Geno finished the game 23 of 28 for 195 yards and 2 touchdowns, and most importantly here, did not turn the football over. And if the Broncos defense was struggling at times with Geno, then what will happen against quarterbacks and teams in their own division? They play the Texans in week 2, who tied the Colts in their week 1 game, and I would like to think the Broncos beat Houston this week. This is most definitely going to be a make or break game for them, because if they lose to the Texans, they have the 49ers, Raiders, Colts, and Chargers waiting for them in their next 4 games. We have to see more from Nathaniel Hackett in week 2, and the Broncos ball carriers have to take care of the football as well. Davis Mills, the Texans quarterback, had a solid week 1 against the Colts, and while I don't think there will be an upset, I do think the Texans will very much keep this competitive. But the Broncos season is very much make or break on this Houston Texans game. Next up is the Green Bay Packers, who lost to the Minnesota Vikings in their opener with a score of 23-7. The Packers lost this game for a variety of reasons, and it does not come down to one play either Justin Jefferson made or, in the opposite, Christian Watson did not make. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers at times was very indecisive and unlike his normal self, and there were times during this game where he had 4 or 5 seconds, in some cases even longer, in the pocket, even without 2 of his starting linemen in David Bakhtiari and Elgton Jenkins, where you'd be sitting on the edge of your seat waiting for him to launch or for him to find the open guy, but that never came. There was also one play in particular in the third quarter where Rodgers got sandwiched, and it ended up being a Vikings forced fumble and led to 3 points. I was surprised to see Aaron hold onto the ball this long, because of so many times in the past you'd see him throw it to a guy just before the pressure got there, or throw it away, and I thought Aaron took a few more hits on Sunday than he could have reasonably avoided. And at 38 years old, well, not every quarterback will play till they're 45 like a guy in Tampa is doing now, so I do think he will want to protect himself moving forward a bit more than he did on Sunday. but the Packers' season being make or break boils down to more than just Aaron Rodgers in Week 2. They had no answer time and time again for Justin Jefferson, and the Bears do not have a weapon on their offense in the same tier as him, but there were times JJ was wide open, and while I am a Vikings fan, it wasn't because Justin was doing anything absurd to get himself open. Of course, there were plays where he did, but there were lapses in coverage, and the play that shows this best was on his second touchdown of the day. Kevin Burkhardt was the play-by-play announcer of this game, and when Justin caught the ball, he said, "How is he that wide open?" And it was because of a miscommunication. Will the Packers beat the Bears? Probably, as they have the Bears owner playing for them at quarterback, and bad jokes aside, if they drop a game to the Bears, who were perceived as one of the worst teams in the NFL, heading into the season in their home opener a week after they lost by double digits to the Minnesota Vikings, things would heat up in Green Bay like we have not seen in some time. And that's why the Packers season is make or break this Sunday night. The next team may be a surprising one, but hear me out as it's the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers are in today's video for a few reasons, and I know the initial thought is probably why, or Baker sucks, or did you see the interception he threw on Sunday, or something in this general vicinity. Yes, they are 0-1 right now, but their next 3 games are at the Giants, home against the Saints, and home against the Cardinals, all of which are winnable. More so for the Saints and Cardinals here, but out of those 3 teams, I don't think you can definitively say right now who will for sure win each game after 1 week. You'd have to think Christian McCaffrey had a dud of a performance for his standards and what we've grown to expect from him over the course of his career, as he had 14 total touches on the day for just 57 yards. 10 carries for 33 yards for Christian is not good for him or for a third-string running back, and it was disappointing. Also, what's kind of lost, or at least I haven't seen it acknowledged too much on social media, is the Panthers put up 24 points against a good defense in Cleveland. Everyone was, and rightfully so, as the NFL wants headlines, but everyone was focused on Baker versus his former team and how he would want to stick it to them, but would really fail to acknowledge, hey, he's going to be going up against Myles Garrett, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome, and more, and it was more of a Baker versus the entire city of Cleveland type ordeal. Carolina also held the ball for just 21.5 minutes out of 60 and averaged just 2.8 yards per carry. The verdict here, to me at least, is they're going to be okay in the long run. No, they're probably not going to be a top 4 or 5 team in the NFL, but they will hold the ball more than 21.5 minutes in a game moving forward. They will average more than 2.8 yards per carry moving forward, and DJ Moore will have more than 3 catches for 43 yards in a game moving forward, which in some ways his lack of production can be attributed to the intense pass rush Cleveland had. And last but not least for Carolina, because I have not addressed this yet, rookie tackle Ikem Ekwonu will be fine. To any Panthers fans sweating the pick because of Myles Garrett, one of the best pass rushers over the past 10 to 15 years, got 2 sacks when Ikem was blocking him, don't sweat it. Myles signed a contract north of $120 million for a reason. He was the number 1 pick in his draft class for a reason, because he is that guy, and he is in his prime. The last time Myles had less than 10 sacks in a season was in 2017, which was his rookie year when Ikem was a junior in high school. So the Panthers can very much win these next 3 games and get back right on track. Next up is the Cincinnati Bengals, who had a very interesting game against the Steelers in Week 1. I'm not too concerned with the loss for Cincinnati or that they are in fact 0-1. What I am concerned with is how much they invested in their offensive line this offseason and how they watched Joe Burrow get beat up last January. Burrow was sacked an NFL record 19 times in one postseason, and they lost 137 yards in the process of those 19 sacks. And I get the Steelers have a good pass rush, led of course by TJ Watt, who is now going to miss some time and thankfully not the whole season, Cam Hayward, and third-year pass rusher Alex Highsmith. but 7 sacks on Sunday is extremely concerning for Cincinnati moving forward. And for those that may not know, Cincinnati plays Dallas on Sunday, and I do believe Dallas's season is effectively over at this point, as they lost their quarterback for a good chunk of the season, and they only put up 3 points when he played most of the game. That is another discussion, but that is relevant for the Bengals because I believe this is a get-right game for them. On paper, they are a better team than the Cowboys, with or without Dak Prescott, and especially without Dak Prescott, and Tyron Smith and Connor McGovern for that matter too. It also didn't help that T. Higgins left the game on Sunday on a violent collision, and that took a big part out of their offense. But what was concerning for the Bengals in Week 1 was Joe Burrow when throwing the ball downfield, which is something he was tremendous at doing in 2021. When throwing the ball beyond 10 yards of the line of scrimmage on Sunday, he was just 7 of 18 for 132 yards, no touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Every player has bad games and makes mistakes, but to be this bad in a part of the field where Joe was elite at a year ago was very concerning. And again, it was just a singular game, and I do expect the Bengals to beat Dallas, and pretty handedly this week. But if in some wild, bizarre scenario the Cooper Rush-led Cowboys beat them, then it would be time to panic. Every franchise that loses a Super Bowl has to worry to some degree about a hangover, as it is fairly common, as in 2018 and 2019, when the Rams and 49ers lost, they missed the playoffs the following year. Kansas City, of course, did not last year, as Joe Burrow and the gang beat them on their way to the Super Bowl. But in the direct game following the Super Bowl loss, a lot of those same questions we had 7 months ago are currently not even close to being answered. There were a few other teams we could have placed in here, and most notably would have been the San Francisco 49ers. And how will Trey Lance and the gang play in Week 2? But guys, that's all I have for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, I now ask you to please leave a like and subscribe to the channel, as it would help tremendously with the YouTube algorithm and be very much appreciated. Also, please subscribe to the second channel where we play Madden franchises and rebuild teams. I think this is something you guys would enjoy, and please join the Discord as well. The link is in the description, and until next time, as always, please be safe and have a great rest of your day. Love you guys.